and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, an Italy travel podcast. I'm Darcy Melton.
And I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And in the next two episodes, we're going to be telling you some of the headlines that are happening in Italy that might be affecting your trip in August and September. It's part of a new segment that we're going to be doing where we tell you some of the headlines happening and how they might affect your trip.
You could also say this new segment is a news segment.
Oh,
sorry.
That was good.
I thought of it and I had to say it and
Don't apologize. That was great. In our news segment, we're going to be telling you some of the stuff that might be affecting your trip because we know it's difficult to plan a trip in general, but it's also almost impossible to keep up with news in another country. And but some of this might affect you. So we want to keep you guys updated.
Absolutely. Yeah. And before we get started, just want to say thank you to everyone who has been leaving us reviews. If you'd like to leave us a review, you can do so on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, where you can also follow us. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can reach out through our website, onlyabag.com. And if you'd like to look at any articles, you can look so on our website. Last but not least, if you'd like to donate to Only a Bag and help us buy new microphones or any other equipment we might need further down the line, you can do so at ko-fi.com/onlyabag. And without further ado, on to the episode.
That was perfect. So in this episode, we are going to be talking about some of the more natural disaster-y types of things happening in the news and how they will affect you. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about more just sort of general, interesting things happening that might be affecting you.
And more importantly, our thoughts on them.
Yeah, obviously, we're both very opinionated, and honestly, you're here for our opinions.
Yes,
not
this
really.
Is sarcasm to be carried.
We know you're here for actual info. So wildfires have been in the news recently because they are happening. I know that they happen in Italy every summer. Wildfires happen, and also it's just generally dry. So there are bad actors. There are people who start fires, and then they burn until they're put out by wonderful firefighters. So you may have seen in the news recently, it seems that Southern Europe often gets lumped together, especially when it comes to weather. But so Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, and Greece are all having problems with wildfires right now. It seems to me that Spain, Portugal, and Greece are having the worst of it. Mm-hmm. So far in Italy, it doesn't seem that people have had to sort of evacuate en masse, but they are certainly affecting people.
Yeah.
Recently, Mount Vesuvius was on fire. It took about 48 hours for rescue workers?
Firefighters
to put out those fires. It was a national effort. They brought in people from all over Italy.
It was also closed, though, right? I mean, it wasn't like while it was open.
Oh, no. Yeah. They had to close it down for that reason. Yeah, absolutely.
I just didn't want anyone to think, too, that like you probably won't stumble on a wildfire more likely than not.
I think whenever it first began, there was the risk of that. But then they pretty immediately cordoned off that area to keep people out of the danger zone.
That makes sense. Okay.
But there are pictures of it. You can see the smoke from Pompeii, for instance.
Wow. Okay.
Which, the fire didn't come into Pompeii, but you could see.
No, but exactly. Yeah. That's wild.
So that's something to keep in mind for whenever you are going to be visiting. Nathaniel told me earlier, before we started recording, about how on Google Maps you can search for...
Not search for, but it is one of the newer updates in the past year. They have all these overlays now. They have a traffic overlay. They have an air quality overlay. And they also have a wildfire overlay. It isn't perfect in the sense that when there are fires around us, where we are in southern sort of rural Italy, not even the smaller fires, but even the larger fires where they did have to have the helicopter go to the water, pick up the ocean water, seawater, and then drop it on the fire. Sometimes those aren't even listed on Google Maps. I don't know if there are criteria for a wildfire being listed there in the sense of we only list it if it's been burning for a week or something, or we only list it if it's been over a certain size of acreage. That being said, it is a pretty helpful tool in terms of knowing where the wildfires are. I think with the LA wildfires last year, was it that far last year? Or was it more recent than that, the fires?
LA
fall?
Has fires all the time, but it feels very recent, like the big blazes.
Yeah.
It feels recent.
And I think a lot of people were tracking through Google Maps to figure out what was still, what was basically no longer on fire and what was on fire because it was updating closer to real time. But I think the ones in Italy tend to be more like every 24 hours they're updated, which is just to say it's a pretty helpful tool if you are planning a trip, or if you're even here and you're like, okay, we are going to have to, go north or go south. I think in maybe one of the previous episodes we mentioned that they even had to close down part of the railways around.
Yeah, we did.
I
We
think
mentioned that recently.
Rome, you mentioned.
Between Civitavecchia and what is the town that is not Rome, where the airport is?
Fiumicino?
Fiumicino, yeah.
Yeah, because of the forest fires basically might have damaged
absolutely.
the tracks.
And I think we also mentioned in that episode something we'd experienced, and it happens every year, is fires inside of cities. So Rome will occasionally have fires inside the cities, which won't show up on the Google Maps always as a wildfire, because maybe it's trash that caught on fire or something like that. It could be like the underbrush along the river burning, things like that. If you see a fire, you can dial 115 to report it. So just stay safe. I know a couple years ago.
Which we actually didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We were on the Ponte Milvio and smelled something burning, and then looked over the edge, and you could see, before looking over the edge, you could see the smoke, but then when you looked over the edge, you could see the a tree and some other little, is it underbrush? That's not really what it is. I think
it's essentially because all these things had gotten caught on the pylons holding up the bridge, and I think, over years they had gotten caught there, and there's clearly no real effort to clean it out, and I guess somebody tossed a cigarette over the edge or something like that, but it was slowly burning, and nothing was on flames. It was more just smoldering. And we noticed, I think later that day, we walked back and everything was cleared out. They clearly had gotten some sort of equipment and cleared out the entire area to prevent it from happening again. So yeah, and we called 115. I think everyone else on the bridge was also dialing, I think this shouldn't be on fire.
And last year near us in the small valley where we live, it was people who'd set fires, right?
Yeah.
So obviously every year there's basically a drought. So a lot of this forest had gotten really, really dry, and people set fires, and it burned so quickly. And I think people attempted to put it out very quickly, but because it was so dry, it spread.
It was also one of those sort of national efforts, where it very quickly spread beyond the capabilities of the area. So we had to, but the cities had to call in national help to get the planes I think we had that little air traffic radar thing. You could not but the flight radar where you can track the planes.
Yeah, you could see the planes going back and forth to the sea to pick up water and bring it back.
It was kind of an interesting time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I guess see a fire, say something.
Yeah, exactly. Only you can prevent wildfires.
There we go. I knew that was
all of us can do our best to prevent wildfires, really. So speaking of hot, dry weather, I know that we have said this to you all a bunch, but particularly during August, everybody goes to the beach.
Yeah.
Obviously, because that's where you want to be. But interestingly, it seems that fewer people have been at the beaches this year. And a part of that, do you feel like it's because the Lidos and things are just more expensive?
There was some article, and I silly me, I did not bookmark this article, and it was something basically compiling data, and it was a lot of these tourism agencies in Italy had found that tourism numbers were down for beaches. And when I say tourism, I do mean Italian tourism mostly, which it's part of the culture, especially if you talk to Italians, anyone over the age of 40, really. It was a thing, maybe a little older, 45, but it was a thing to go to the beach for a week. And you would, oftentimes if you had a beach club, or you'd spend money at the Lido, and you'd get the chairs, the letti, the sunbeds. I'm not sure what, yeah.
Sunbed and umbrella, and you're just there all day, every day for a week.
And it wasn't unaffordable. It was sort of, sometimes there were package deals, and sometimes it was, a family discount or something like that. But in the recent years, in the past couple of years specifically, especially post-COVID, I think that's where a lot of these Lidos were hit hard because nobody could visit. So they felt the need to we need to kind of make that back. This is me assuming, by the way, zero, I have no point of reference for this, but it's a lot of people noticed after COVID is when some of these, beds hopped from 25 or 30 a person to 50 a person. Positano being one of them. I think the article quoted Monopoli, which is a sort of a resort town in Puglia, quite small but really quite famous, beautiful water, beautiful town. And they essentially, it was, people can't really, Italians specifically, can no longer afford to go to the beaches because it meant going to these Lido rather than going to the free beach. So it was this, essentially the article kind of more focused on this cultural shift of, we were once a people who'd go to the beach for a week or two, and now we don't get paid enough, and we can no longer afford it, which is obviously, this is kind of the story everywhere, I guess, right? I think we talked about in some previous episode about how just the idea of national parks in America, and how that used to be everybody had the sort of the vacation there because that was cheap and affordable.
Right.
So this is all simply to say that, yeah, beaches are becoming less visited by Italians, at least this year. That was the evidence this year. And instead, people are headed towards the mountains, which, if I may, I was going to say also just, it was as you segued into this, talking about the heat, part of it was, I mean, a typical summer where we are is about 85 to 90 degree days, and then it goes down at night. If you're on the coast, it goes down less, obviously, it's more humid. But it wasn't it wasn't boiling. There was always that one heat wave. And I think a lot of people, a lot of weather outlets, I will say, have essentially are saying like heat waves used to be a day or two, maybe 3 days. We're getting like week-long heat waves, which is rare. And I say rare, like in the past 5 years, I think we've been talking about how even the heat wave this year was like 8 or 9 days. So rare, I think, must be like, in 20 years ago, this never happened. Right. Not 5 years ago, this never happened. However, I think a lot of people are finding that like just going to the beach is still, just it's painful, honestly, more than anything else.
Especially when the temperature stays high for so long and you can't sleep well, you're not having a vacation. So when if you go to the beach, it's expensive to stay, and more things are vacation rentals and not hotels necessarily. Or if families have been can't afford to live there, they've been bought out, so you don't have a family house at the beach anymore. So it's expensive to stay. Yeah. It's expensive to go to the beach, and it's just hot. More and more people are just coming to the mountains and maybe driving for a beach day. Like where we live, people will have a single day to the beach, but stay in our mountain town where it drops dramatically at night, and it's just so much cooler and way less expensive.
Even during the heat waves, I think like Rome was only getting down to 80 at night, 80, 82, 83. And even at the height of our heat wave, it was like 95, 96 in the day. It was still dropping to about 72 at night. So it's still, totally fine at night in terms of being, comfortable to sleep in and stuff.
And as we've said before, it's been kind of an odd summer in that there have been some chilly days. So there was one day where I wore a sweater most of the day in August. That being said, the nights get so chilly. So it's just easier to live.
Which explains this sort of rise in I guess hiking, not even hiking, it's more just mountain visiting, I think. And I think people are realizing or remembering potentially that there are really beautiful things to do in the mountains. So this has led to a pretty large increase in mountain tourism.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of that is very responsible people who know how to hike and who go there prepared. But there's a big problem.
That's not who we're talking about in this episode.
That's not who we're talking about. We're talking about people who are unprepared, largely who go on hikes based on having seen something on social media. So there's a particular path or area in the Dolomites, in the Seceda. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm saying it wrong. It is Seceda. It's a big mountain peak, super famous. I think it was it was an Apple screensaver a few years ago. It looks like two giant shark fins coming out of the earth to me. It's beautiful.
It's going to say, if you've seen a picture of the Dolomites, you've probably seen a picture of it, if that makes sense.
Yes, exactly.
It's like the picture of the Dolomites.
Exactly. And essentially this one hiking path has recently become incredibly popular on TikTok and probably on Instagram as well, but TikTok is the social media people use when they talk about it in the news. And so way more people have gone to this very specific area this year than essentially ever before. And one day this year in August, very recently, 8,000 people were on this path. And if you look it up, there's videos and photos of it almost looks like you can't get past people because there's so many people there. And because of this, local farmers and just people in the area have set up turnstiles and are now charging tourists €5 to get through to this path.
Wild. It's just wild.
Technically not legal for them to be doing that, but so far it doesn't seem like any officials have taken them down or told the people to remove their turnstiles. If you go there, you don't have to pay €5 to get to that path. It is free. There are other pathways. It's not just, the one path.
Yeah.
But clearly that's where people go because that was what was on TikTok.
If I mention, it's the reason it's illegal rather than technically not legal. I love hearing technically not legal. It is illegal. But the reason I want to mention is the Dolomites is a national park. So they are not they're not charging you to see private land, which is one thing, because I think sometimes
Right.
farmers will like plant like the flowers, whatever, and do like a TikTok or Instagram day where you come out during all the flowers that are blooming, and it's like, $10 to walk around the flowers, whatever, to take your photos. They are charging you to access public land, which is dicey.
Yeah. Well, and public parks are free.
Yes.
In Italy, you have a right to
The public
land.
park, yeah. And the reason but as you mentioned to me, I think off mic, and I don't know if you're building to this, and if I apologize if you were, but I wanted to mention that this was almost more of a protest than it was a actual way to monetize it.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So it seems that a lot of the local people are frustrated because they aren't getting help from the government, essentially, to prevent over-tourism in this area. And what they've noticed is there's been a shift from people who come and hike and do it responsibly, who are well-prepared, who have that idea of leave only footprints is the phrase.
Yeah, take nothing, leave only footprints.
Exactly. But there's been a shift to people who don't really care about care about the land at all. They're just there to take pictures. They bring trash and leave trash.
Well, I think they bring food and then leave trash. I don't think they like.
Yeah.
I don't think they
sorry. They bring food or plastic wrapped items, and then they leave the trash. Thank you. They're not like bringing back the trash.
I was like, it's not like, oh, while I'm here, I'll throw away the trash.
Yeah. People are going off of the paths and trampling meadows, trampling crops, because people do use some of that land as farmable land. So a lot of these people are just frustrated that they're not getting assistance to keep disrupting tourists away. So they've put the turnstiles up as a protest to get noticed.
That makes sense.
And they have. So since the turnstiles were installed, the local government did put in place sort of trail guides, park rangers, essentially, to keep tourists on the paths and off of meadows and from ruining the ecological system there. So that's an improvement. So their protest has done something.
Yeah. I think that's always a hard one though too, because obviously this can backfire in a lot of ways. It could tell somebody in government that, hey, people will pay to access national parks, or it can also, I think we talked about this off mic, it was the same issue that people in Venice, when they were protesting that €5 entry fee, they were saying if it's seen as a ticket fee, people are a lot more loose with it in terms of like, well, I've paid to be here, so I can do anything I want.
Yes.
And it's like, no, it's a city. We live here. You can't do whatever you want. And I think the same thing here is if people pay €5 to access it, all of a sudden they think, well, of course I can go down there and take a photo. Of course, like, and if I'm paying you, and I think I only said it too because people have that same idea with maybe not great people, but I hope I didn't insult anybody who's listening to this, but the people who like toss trash on the ground, and it's like, well, somebody's gonna, I'm paying taxes, somebody's gonna clean that up, and it's like, right, but they won't. That's how trash ends up in the ocean. Just, you're not supposed to throw trash on the ground. That's like basic entry level civics here. So I think there's this idea that like, oh, I'm paying, this must be kept up in some way.
But unfortunately, before these turnstiles were installed, that's exactly what has been happening.
People are
doing it anyway. Exactly. And as we'll talk about in a minute, people are going off trails or going through trails that have been marked off because they're dangerous at the moment. So people are just clearly not respecting this area, not respecting nature, just kind of acting poorly, essentially, and it needs to be addressed.
And that sounds quite spicy, though, that people are going off the trail. I love that. What does that mean?
Well, great, Nathaniel. Thank you for segueing me there. So
more than welcome. I was like, I can. What a segue.
So recently, in the last couple of weeks, a British hiker was fined €14,225 or $16,400 for going into an area that was restricted in the Dolomites. He ended up needing to be rescued, and this rescue took 2 helicopters and more than 12 rescue personnel. And so he was fined for that because he walked past many things that told him not to go that way. What did he walk past, you might ask? Well, he walked past 4 signs in Italian and in English. He walked past several hikers who told him, this area that you're going towards is restricted. Do you want to come back with us? He said no. He crawled around a barrier and continued. He found himself in a landslide. He called rescue personnel, and I don't know exactly how he called them. It doesn't say. Many articles do state that he didn't have any proper equipment with him, like he didn't have a GPS.
Or like a satellite phone, basically.
Exactly. So however he was able to contact these people. He didn't have his exact location. He knew generally where he was. And basically they were like, we can't see you. Even if we're in helicopters, we can't see you. There's a big cloud around you, or where your general area. We need your latitude and longitude. He didn't have that. So they said, until the cloud passes, until we can figure out exactly where you are, we're just going to have to, gather people together and then get ready. We can't just wander off to a general area because that's dangerous for them.
There's some sort of Italian sitcom where like Italians are on the phone with a guy who has one bar of service and like, walking through how to like find latitude, longitude, like on Google Maps or something like that. I can already see it.
Yeah, exactly.
I say that because it ends in a happy note. It'd be much sadder if it ended in a sad note.
Yes. So this man was rescued. He is okay. Everybody who went to go rescue him is also okay, but he's being fined because like that took a lot of effort.
Everything.
Yeah. So he's being charged essentially the fees for the rescue.
I was going to say, we've talked about this before. Typically, you are covered here. I mean, I say typically, it's hard because you'll notice a lot of travel insurance does have, weirdly, not all travel insurance, but like there's spelunking travel insurance, there's scuba diving travel insurance, there is hiking travel insurance. And if you look at some of these, like scuba diving one covers Coast Guard rescue, spelunking, and the hiking one will cover, like I guess hiking covers a helicopter rescue, where spelunking will cover some sort of like, we'll get a team in there and try to find you kind of thing. So there are travel insurances in place to cover things like this. I can't imagine this guy is going to be covered after that, because I feel like part and parcel is like you can't just wander through. But the reason I mention this is it does seem that Italy isn't necessarily, and I'm speaking necessarily not from a whole bunch of history or knowledge, but it does seem like they don't have a history of just like charging people wantonly for getting lost or anything like that.
No, absolutely
It seems like
not.
more of like we could not have been more clear that this was do not go here. We spent a lot of resources on you that could have been spent on, as you're going to tell us, other lost hikers, and like not because you were on a marked trail and something happened,
right?
Like you fell off or you got caught in a mudslide or a landslide or something like that, or attacked by a bear. I don't know. I mean, that feels like that happens in movies. It's like you went out seeking a very dangerous place, and then lo and behold, you found a very dangerous place.
Right, exactly. Yes, we definitely want to tell you all that if you are hiking and you are doing things responsibly, if you're in an area that you're allowed to be in, I mean, no matter what, you're going to be rescued. But if you're doing everything right, you're going to be rescued. There's no charge. If you have a genuine emergency, you will not be charged. That is, Italy is very big on free healthcare. You're fine. But there's a problem with people putting themselves in danger and wasting resources, and those are the people who will be charged for those services.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So 1 week before this man had to be rescued and airlifted out, 2 Belgian hikers were in, I believe, the same area. I couldn't find as much information about them, but they were in the same area and also went past signs that told them that this was a currently restricted area for things like landslides. It wasn't a safe area at the moment. So those 2 people were also fined, but they were fined, it seems significantly less because they are EU members, and the original person I mentioned before, he's a British man, so he's not a part of the EU.
Did they mention for the Belgians, do they also have to use like 2 helicopters and 20 people or something?
There were rescue services that they required.
Okay, I was curious if it was one of those things like it's a charge based on the amount of people out there. It
could be that as
used.
well, but what I saw was specifically related to their EU status.
Okay, that makes sense. I wonder if there's some sort of agreement where that's like we won't charge other members of our EU sort of out the nose for something
probably an
like
agreement, exactly, between countries, exactly.
Okay.
So as I was researching this, I found something out which I hadn't seen anywhere else. So this is tragic. More than 80 people have died hiking in the Italian Alps and the Dolomites this year between June 21st and July 23rd. That is a lot of people.
Wow.
In a short amount of time. So this is the deadliest hiking season of the century happening right now. 5 people are still missing in this area. And rescue calls have increased by 20%.
And I guess, and that one's only not a weird statistic, but again, that one makes me, I'm curious about that one, the 20% one, only because how many of these people basically can't make a call?
Exactly.
Like, so it's like 20% is like, let's say there are 100 calls, that's 120 calls, but that's like if you have service. And if you're only slightly off a trail that's kind of near a cell phone tower, rather than like I'm in the middle of nowhere, because I think it was, I mean, even the beginning of this year, there was stories about people hiking in winter. Like, and again, part of it seems to be winter hiking, I guess, is a thing. I did not know that was a thing. I don't know why I didn't know it was a thing, but apparently hiking in the snow is a thing. I guess snowshoes do exist.
Yeah.
So, and people had gotten lost, and I think, and ended up dying there as well. So it's unfortunate that I think we do keep kind of coming back to this. We in different episodes and talking about how that. I think one we were talking about how Italy doesn't have guardrails in place, and obviously in some cases they very much do, but it's still nature. I think, for lack of a better word, it's still like if you're there, you're there, and it's probably on your own. And I mean, if we can, we'll come rescue you, kind of thing. But it's not a guarantee. And I think this also ties in, as you mentioned earlier, the fact that more people are in the mountains or going to the mountains, it will lead to a higher rate of, sort of tragedies, basically.
Absolutely. It's really sad. And it's also to say that it's so important to be prepared, and it's so important to acknowledge, especially when you're doing something out in nature, that nature happens.
Absolutely. And actually, and recently we went hiking with my uncle and my cousin and you, obviously. So that was part of the we statement. And no, we went up into this abandoned Air Force base, which everybody it's like a little walk, basically. It's a 2.5 hour loop. Everybody kind of walks around as a little thing. I don't know. It's
almost become a nature preserve.
Yes,
since the military base was shut down. There's somewhat wild horses and cows, and it's just incredible.
A bunch of birds and things that you don't get here because it's too much of a city. That's a big one. I think there's always like little signs for like the birds you can see, kind of thing. And it turns into a kind of a lake in the rainy season. It's like this it's normally a grassland, but it turns into a lake when it's super rainy. And the reason I mention it is because it's a really beautiful, lovely walk. It's also higher up than we are. Even though we're high up, it's like another 200, 300 meters higher up. So it gets much cooler. So in the summer, it gets really popular with people just to kind of
cool down during the day.
Yeah, just to take it, like to be outside and also cool. And of course, part of it is the fact that the roads there kind of are washed out a bit. They were paved at one point. They're now less paved.
Yes.
And there's no cell phone signal. So we, my uncle wanted to go for a hike, and I was like, oh, this will be perfect. But, there is a potentially a storm coming. Like, we get these afternoon rains, and it looks really nice now. It's all blue skies. It's beautiful, but it might turn later. It's been turning in the afternoon into a kind of a thunderstorm. And he was kind of like, in New York, every time there's a storm, everyone's kind of concerned about the next big storm and the next big storm. And I was like, yeah, well, these things happen, I guess, storms. And I didn't really think anything of it, I think, until we were hiking. And then about an hour and a half in, maybe an hour and 15 minutes in, it did. I mean, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it has gotten cold. But I mean, it was like, it went from warm, nice weather and then this storm cloud on the horizon to really cold air coming through. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is going to get really stormy really quickly.
It was cold, windy suddenly. You could hear the thunder rumbling through the valley. And it has that, when you can feel like the electric charge in the air.
Yeah,
and things kind of turned. And I turned to the group and I said, we need to turn around.
Well, it's also like the cows are sort of like kind of getting out of
when you notice all of the cows going in one direction.
They know what's going on. Yeah. And so you were like, we should go. Yeah. And I think my uncle was like, yeah, just want to check in though. Like, what's the concern here? Is it like we have phones? Like, we don't want the phones to get wet? He's like, because I brought a plastic bag so we can kind of wrap the phones. And you're like, no, not the phones. No, the lightning. And the fact it's like going to be like 50 degrees in a second. And I was like, my cousin was, was like tank top because it was hot. So we're all in like super summer stuff, flip flops, nothing serious, as you were talking about before. I mean, we were not in hiking gear. I think we had a water bottle each.
I was wearing tennis shoes.
You were wearing tennis shoes.
I was summer prepared.
I think I was wearing tennis shoes or flip flops, something like that. One of the two, either prepared or not. And no, but I thought it was interesting because it is this is like a way to admonish my uncle or anything, but it is that sort of thing that I realized we forgot what we learned living here in terms of, I think, and partly because I think Savannah or Georgia, southeast United States is big for hurricanes. So I think if you're in the southeast United States, at least you do grow up with an appreciation for weather in terms of like, this can get really bad. So when somebody's like, oh, this is a bad storm coming, it's not like, oh, things are going to get wet. It's like, oh, you might lose a roof. Like, you need to do something about that. So I think here it's the same way. Like, even though it's stone houses, so we feel really comfortable inside, it's tons of mudslides, bad flooding, and of course temperature dropping, because it is not the nice tropical rainstorms of
Savannah.
Of Savannah. Yeah. It is like, this is just cold. This is ice. This is wet ice. This is ridiculous. So I guess in the run back to the car, we were trying to explain all this. And of course, when it started, I think he kind of grasped it a bit, because he was like, oh, this is like chilly, you know. And I think my cousin, was like shivering, and we're like, I have nothing. I'm also in one shirt. Do you want my shirt? I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, we're all freezing here. So I think this is all to say, this is more supposed to be a lighthearted little story of like, even in what is just a totally benign, we're just going to go for a little walk. There's a really cute little loop we're going to do. It's nothing. You could do it in flip-flops. It is not a big hike at all. Can easily turn into, wow, I didn't realize that like when it drops from 80 to 50 and then it's cold rain and there's nowhere to seek shelter, this can get really bad really quickly. So I think it's just one of those things that I don't know, it's the same thing as it's heat stroke in Rome. We talk about that often. Like, you're like, yeah, we're used to heat, but it's different when you're in a stone box. Like, right. It's all of a sudden,
everything,
like 30
and there's
degrees
no
hotter.
shade. Yes.
So I think being here, has definitely given me personally appreciation for like nature in that sense. Like, oh, this can get bad quick. And I know some of y'all listening are like, oh yeah, no, you should have had an appreciation a long time ago. 30's too late to appreciate it. But it's I think something I personally, I think live a life that's so, the rough edges are so filed down, if that makes sense, right. In terms of like, if I'm hot, AC, if I'm cold, this, or I don't have AC or heat here, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
but that's how we grew up.
Yeah. So I think this is an idea that like, wow, I did not realize the severity of just a rainstorm, let alone a wildfire or a landslide or something much more severe.
Yeah. It's all about personal responsibility and respecting nature.
Yeah. And I think there's one other thing you wanted to mention. Yeah,
well, it was kind of just another tourists behaving poorly anecdote. So maybe it's kind of funny, I don't know. A Scottish man was recently apprehended in Pompeii, attempting to steal 6 fragments, and he
of Pompeii, to be clear.
Pompeii, yes, thank you, fragments of Pompeii. He was caught by a tour guide, noticed him essentially, and then told a carabinieri officer,
who obviously arrested him.
Yeah, exactly. And because of this, he could be fined a maximum of 1,500 euros or face up to 6 years of prison time.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it. That's not the same thing at all.
No. And I don't, neither of us think that is something that he will have to face. It just clearly falls in a bracket of don't maybe deface government property or historic land. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah. So,
I think this also,
don't do that.
Well, it's also just a good thing for it's that sort of don't listen to that. What not like the demons in your head, but that sort of the invasive voice, the voice that that says just do that thing. Like there are obviously don't do that thing, and Pompeii or Pestum or the Colosseum, anything like that. Of course, it's this like I just want to take a little piece. It'd be such a good memento. Nobody's going to notice it missing, but obviously, when millions of people take a little piece, it quickly disappears.
And some believe that you will be cursed.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
That's not great.
No. But that's the kind of like fun part. I mean, it's not fun. Curses aren't fun, but it's whimsical.
It's a fun, whimsical note to end on. So I think that was everything, right? Or is there another?
No, that is all for our first of the 2 episodes for this week, talking about headlines that could affect your trip.
So respect nature and respect historical sites, and also enjoy your trip.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I guess join us for the next episode.
Tanti abbracci.
Beautiful bracci. Beautiful outro.